So when I was a kid, I remember that one of the hardest things about going to visit my grandparents in New York City was seeing homeless people, because I couldn't walk by them without giving. From the time I was a little kid, I just didn't believe that people who were poor or homeless had anything, it was not all on them. It had a lot to do with us as a society. So much so that at 12 years old, I got a gift of going to New York to see a Broadway musical because I was so into dance and the arts. And my family gave me money because they knew I wouldn't be able to walk by. Last March, I came home and my power had been shut off. To me, that was failure. I experienced it as failure. I experienced that as failure because I was ashamed and humiliated. I experienced it as failure because of the family I came from. It didn't matter that I had lost all my belongings in the flood 5 years ago, or that I had been sick for the last several years. All that mattered is that I had failed, and this represented all of that. At that time, I couldn't have imagined standing in front of you in a way that so many people will see and admitting that I came home one day with my son and we didn't have power because I could not afford to pay the bill. So I'm the director of the Southern Vermont Dance Festival. As you heard, it's a festival that's been entering its 5th season. It's now one of the foremost festivals in the country. I also have a pre-professional training program for modern dancers and a dance company. In my life, I have choreographed for the Baltimore Children's Theater. I have interned at Bernie Sanders' office. I have shown my work across the country and taught workshops all around. Whenever I rattle that off, I think that's a really successful resume, right? But that's not true according to the definition of success that I've allowed to rule my body throughout my life. So where does that definition come from? Well, I believe that we have 4 definitions of success that are within us. I believe we have the societal definition, our family definition, our perceived definition, what we think is success, and our true definition, which we actually hide in the toe of our boot and never actually let come out. And what makes it even more complicated is I believe that these definitions are floating around in us, causing conflict, and never actually coming together to create one cohesive definition so that we can find our true definition. So success used to be so much more simple. We got promotions at work, we got married, we had kids, we had dinners with our family, our kids grew up, they got jobs, and we paid bills, and we were able to lead the cookie-cutter lifestyle, and there were huge problems with that. However, it was simpler. And when you think about it, now it's gotten a lot more complex for everyone, not just artists. It's always been complex for artists. And it's just, so we have to make up our own definition, right? We have to really decide for ourselves what our definition of success is. And I feel like it's because of that we've begun to harbor these 4 definitions that never come together. So I had to ask myself, why is that? How do we come up with a true definition of success? That was really hard for me. So first of all, we're going to talk about how those different definitions affect me. So the societal definition. This is a big one. It rests right at the surface, and for me, I'm a dancer, so right at the top of the list is I have to be skinny and skinny at all costs, and that's a problem for me because that's not who I am. And then I have to be, I grew up in Brattleboro, Vermont, so I have to be an activist, and I have to be cool because in Brattleboro you have to be cool, in case you don't know. And I am also the magazines and TVs, so I have to be powerful, gorgeous, and famous and rich, and then I have to go on long leisurely vacations while always answering all my emails, all my texts, all my phone messages, while getting enough rest and enough exercise, and be a perfect parent, never yell, perfect birthday parties, all my photos and albums, and then I have to have a studly husband who is manly except does also all the chores, doesn't mind that I'm super busy, but spends all his time with me, and then I have to be I have to be at the top of my field while acting like I've never done any hard work, and then also always saying, it's okay because I love what I do because I'm an artist, and then I have to say, I have to be grateful all the time because if I'm not grateful, I'm doing something wrong. So the societal definition rests at the surface, always reminding me that I'm not meeting the benchmarks that are set for me. However, it's also the most ridiculous one, so it's easier for me to let go of those pieces. I can laugh off places in there in which I fail, in my mind. The familial definition is a little more difficult for me. I come from a family of greatness, long line of greatness. My maternal grandfather was a screenplay writer. He wrote the screenplay to Roots. My maternal grandmother broke barriers as a feminist and became a therapist at a time when people didn't do that. My paternal grandfather was he was an engineer, physics professor at Cornell University, and he was known for his work in electron microscopy. My paternal grandmother was a Jewish feminist who, at a time when we did not do Jewish feminists, and she became a writer and a therapist and really became outspoken in that field. In my family, I have well-known opera singers. I have 2 great uncles who were incredible entrepreneurs, and I have a great uncle who is known for his work as a civil rights attorney and taught law at Rutgers. In my family, the bar is high, the highest impossible, which is absolutely amazing and absolutely terrifying. So part of a familial definition is also what you've been told about success, right? So and it actually doesn't matter what they're saying, it's what you hear. So what I heard was, be an artist, don't be an artist, be an activist, but not if you can't make money being an can't make money being an activist. Be a scholar, don't ask for help being a scholar, never ask for help. Make sure you're making a difference in the world and make money, make money, make money, make money, make money. And the most prominent voice was, Brenda, you are not meeting that definition of success. So my familial definition was probably the most invasive and most disruptive and the most wonderful and most motivating. Then there's the perceived definition. For me, the perceived definition actually changes constantly. It's built a bunch of stuff you just heard, plus I'm always adding in other things. So in this current moment, I have to make sure that I'm doing a perfect fundraiser around my 40th birthday for the festival. I have to make sure that I'm never yelling. I've been yelling too much. I have to not ever yell. And I need to make sure that I'm always keeping my house perfectly clean, that I get enough rest, that I'm teaching perfect classes, and on and on. Everything's perfect in my perceived definition. And it goes on and on and on. So then when I put these all together, they conflict with each other. They don't even make sense together. And then how do I come up with my true definition of success? That's what you have to ask yourself, right? How do I come up with my true definition of success? Well, I had to imagine times when I actually felt successful. So I'm going to ask all of you to go ahead and close your eyes and feel a time when you felt successful. Not a time when someone told you that it was a success, but a time when you felt success in your body. Do you feel tingling in your hands? Is your belly full or empty? Do you feel light or heavy? Try to take those sensations with you. Go ahead and open your eyes. So it's interesting what we actually come up with when we're feeling it instead of thinking it, right? So that's what I did. I actually sat down and I thought of 3 times that I felt success, and I came up with some pretty interesting things. The first one was had to do with dance. It was when I put my choreography on stage. The most awesome thing about this definition of success for me is that it has absolutely nothing to do with what anyone else thinks of the work. It has to do with the fact that I did what I meant to do on the stage. And it has this feeling of resolve and excitement and calm and release. So the second one, which is probably the most important one to me, is when I see my son move about in the world. When I see him carrying the values that I hoped he would carry. When he tells me everything, and by everything I mean like everything, more than you want to know, and as a mom. And he came home, like for example, he came home one day and he said, "Mom, the teachers were being mean to a kid at school, and I did not like it, and so I spoke up. I told them that I didn't like it, and I didn't think that they were being fair and that they should not treat him that way. And then I found out that the kid he's talking about is a kid he didn't even like." When he comes home and says, "Mom, I thought about it, and you're right, I am doing too much." My 14-year-old said I was right, so that's there. When I post something on Facebook and it's an article, it says, "Check out this awesome article," and then I look at it and it's an article about how dress codes are damaging to girls. When he makes a page for boycotting chocolate companies that use slave children to make chocolate. When he stands up to friends and foes against sexism, racism, and xenophobia. When I see that he's an activist, an artist, and outspoken, that is when I feel success, because I see him carrying the success that I see as valuable. And the last one ties in a little, but it's a different feeling in my body, and that's when I'm out there doing something that I think will make a difference in the world. I can go to bed and I actually calm down, which is something, if you know me, I don't do all that often. So what do I do with this? Well, what I did was I put all my definitions that I told you about before, all of them together in a list. And then I actually, now that I could feel what success feels like, I actually felt them, sat in my body, and let it sit, and each word, each thing up there, and then I began to delete, literally eliminate, clear the field, things that don't actually matter to me. And then, once I did that, I was left with this list. And when I looked at these 9 things, I had to ask myself, does that match my definition of success? And what I found out is no, it actually doesn't. So then I thought, what if I take my career out of it? That seems to be a kind of disruptive part. What if I take my career out of it? So I took my career out of it, and I instead had career goals on my list. And then I went and put together another list and thought each one through and kind of tweaked some of these, and I came up with this list. And yeah, dance is still on there, but it ebbs and flows. But when I look at this, and career goals is separate, I made a separate list of career goals because I couldn't take it away completely. But those aren't I don't need those for success. When I look at this list, and then I sit down and I close my eyes, and I feel what that feels like, that, to me, would be success. And it is so important to be able to feel it in your body. So last March, I came home, and my power had been shut off. And because I did not react to that the way that I actually believe about people that are in my situation, I was forced to come to actually think about how I define success. And now when I sit with this list, it feels right in my body. So I urge all of you to go home, sit, figure out what your 3 perceived definitions of success are: perceived, familial, societal, and then start to eliminate. Figure out 3 times you felt successful and begin to eliminate. I challenge you to define success by how you feel instead of what your mind says. To sit down, close your eyes, and imagine, what does success feel like?